Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Renault Sport Series. This is the final race of the year, and indeed ever, for the Renault Sport Trophy cars. This will be a 25-minute plus one-lap race around the 4.1-kilometre Estoril circuit. My name's Johnny Palmer, joined by John Hindhoff.
Good morning.
And we are looking forward to what is promising to be an entertaining race, because these are all the pro drivers that will be put into the 14 cars that we have on the grid. There's a reminder of where we've been through the 2016 season, with the culmination of the championship here at Estoril. So a couple of races already under our belt. Yesterday there was a 70-minute endurance race for these cars, and we've already had a sprint race for the AM machines. Well, we're about to get underway with a 25-minute plus one lap race for these pro drivers, and as you can see, we've had a quick, short, sharp rain shower between the Formula Renault race and this one. There's an indication of where we are in the world, on the Atlantic coast here in Estoril in Portugal, after a number of meetings around continental Europe. And the Renault Sport Trophy cars, a purebred prototype car really. There is the 4.1-kilometre circuit then here at Estoril, built in 1972, held Grand Prix up until 1996 when Jacques Villeneuve won from Damon Hill around this classic circuit. It's very abrasive around here, and tricky tyre decision to make now for these teams, because we've just had rain. It looks like it's stopped, and we're peering into the cockpit of Stein Schotthorst for Equipe Vachour. A good time of 1:48.2 to put that car on pole position.
Yeah, I think it's wet, Johnny. Again, I think that little short, sharp shower that we had at the end of the last race and during the podium celebrations has probably just dampened the track off enough to make it okay for these cars to go through their final race as RS01 trophy cars. Now, 50 of these cars have been built by Renault Sport using that 550 plus horsepower Nissan V6 twin turbo engine. Whether they will turn up elsewhere in racing, almost certainly they will. Not a GT3 eligible car, of course, because no road car was ever built by Renault or Alpine to homologate them as such. Purpose-built carbon fibre monocoque car. Great styling. I love this car. It looks great. It would have made a great halo car for Renault or for Alpine, but it wasn't to be, and the original 4 years has been cut to 2 for these cars, and therefore this is the last time we'll see them as nature intended, with the carbon fibre brakes, with the slippery aero package, and with the full power engine. I suspect if we see them making their way into other championships, as has happened in the past, it will be with the GT3 equivalency package, which raises the ride height, puts a big stopper wing on the back of the car, and puts steel discs rather than the carbon fibre stoppers on them. Let's hope the pros do the same kind of sensible driving as the AMs did earlier, and not the ridiculous, frankly, opening couple of laps that we saw in the endurance race yesterday, which almost saw fisticuffs later on in the pit lane, and indeed there's been some fines handed out for that. The worst part of that is the driver that was accosted was the wrong driver, and really he didn't know why he was having his chest poked by other drivers. It's a wet track, which means, of course, tyre selection is free. Everybody, I would guess, will be on the wet weather Michelin tyres.
Yes, the slight kerfuffle in the pit lane was targeted at the right team, but the problem was the driver they were after was Nelson Panciatici and not Lonnie Martins, who, it has to be said, just kind of approached the whole situation in a very confused manner indeed. I don't understand what I'm being accused of here, because I don't remember hitting anybody. But Nelson Panciatici had not one, not two, but 3 goes at the number 2 car of Raul Owens into the first of the parabolicas on the lap. There is Panciatici in the Duquesne engineering car, so the second of the black machines, with the French tricolour represented on the front of that car. There was Raul Owens as well in the white R.S. GP machine with the red detailing. So it'll be Stein Schotthorst to start from pole position, 1:48.238 his qualifying time. Marcus Paltela alongside in the Team Mark VDS car. Marcus Paltela securing the championship with Fabian Schiller in the Endurance Cup yesterday. Kevin Courjus starts in 3rd position. Let's hope his car does the distance in this sprint race, and then it's Pieter Schothorst. Tanart Satin-Terakul, the man from Thailand, starts in 5th position alongside Raul Owens. Dario Capitanio 7th, moving from Am to Pro for the 2016 season. David Fuminelli starting in 8th. Lonnie Martins and Nelson Pansy-Teach 9th and 10th, and all Duquesne Engineering 5th row there for Josh Webster for V8 Racing starts 11th alongside Anders Fjordbach for High Class Racing. Pedro Molero, the Portuguese driver, his first action of the Renault Sport Trophy for this year, and Nicky Pastorelli could be making some ground early on at the back of the order. But the very fact that this is the last race of the year, the last race ever for the Renault Sport Trophy, I just wonder whether body panels may not be treated as respectively as the AM drivers did earlier on today. Of course, the AM drivers had to bear in mind there was going to be another race within a couple of hours. Well, there isn't another race after this.
Can I ask a question about the pace car driver? Yeah. Has he always been the last of the late diving into the pits? Because this estate car that's been pacing the cars around this weekend, he has been mighty in terms of how late he's dived into the pit lane.
I think he's just desperate to race, isn't he? in amongst these 14 pure prototype cars. But yes, often it looks like a very, very late decision to go for a start. But what it means is that the man in pole position, in this case Stein Schothorst, is not really given a great deal of opportunity to pull out a distance. So it means we have a nice, compact, tight formation as they head across the grid hatchings. That was relatively early, in fairness. Maybe it's a different pace car driver, but the lights go to green then on the gantry, and now it's really tricky for the guys back in the midfield to even see the next car in front, let alone where to turn in at turn number 1. Spray incredibly bad there. So Miguel Ramos's car, now driven of course by Schothorst, down into turn number 1, the best seat in the house. Kevin Courjus struggling to hang on to his car on the exit of turn number 1. Car wide in the background, but say this quietly, I think they've all managed to get through relatively cleanly through turns 1. Oh, and a spin though for the number 2 car of Raul Owens. So I spoke okay about turn 1, but there's a problem at 2, and Nicky Pastorelli's just missed Raul Owens as he recovers from his own little moment.
Yes, a lot of money lost there as everybody got round for turn number 1, and whoever had between turns 2 and 3 in the sweep in race control gets the big prize for where the first incident is. 7-speed Sadev gearboxes working very hard in these conditions as they're streamed out. Really, that camera shot does not give you any idea of how bad it is from the following cars, and our second place driver has gone wide there.
Kevin Courjus with Marcus Paltela not quite allowing him through, but making an uncharacteristic mistake. We've got cars darting to the left and to the right there at the head of the order, and coming through Tanart Satin-Terakul to be the best placed Mark VDS car, although slotting back into second position there Kevin Courjus. Oh, it's side by side, less contact at the gink, and there's a tyre bale coming up as well, but Courjus gets it back onto the black stuff, and squeezing up the inside there in the McGregor car was Pieter Schothorst, going the wrong way of the tyre bales there, Tanart Satin-Terakul. I somehow realised that this is going to be an entertaining first lap. It's probably going to be like this all the way to the flag as well. A short race compared to yesterday, 25 minutes plus a lap. Oh, sideways action there as well for Kevin Courjus versus Marcus Paltela, and that happened earlier on in the lap. Now, where was that?
He got pointed in the right direction, didn't lose a position.
And he kept the place. Yeah, phenomenal car control there from Kevin Courjus. So Stein Schothorst, oblivious to what's kicking off behind him, now leads the race by 5.8 seconds, which is a stupid margin after just one lap of this Estoril circuit. It is still Kevin Courjus, despite a rotation, running in second position ahead of David Fuminelli in the number 4 Oregon team car. We've got in 4th place Pieter Schothorst, then Marcus Paltela. Josh Webster is 6th, 7th place Nelson Pansy-Teach ahead of Anders Fjordbach, Satin-Terakul and Lonnie Martins completing the top 10. More door handle to door handle action there as Nelson Pansy-Teach is trying to keep he's moving ahead in fact of Josh Webster, and behind Webster is the number 11 car of Anders Fjordbach. So there is confirmation of the standings after a couple of laps, and Schothorst out front, but Courjus gains a place. Fuminelli's up 5 spots now to 3rd position. Pieter Schothorst holding station in 4th. Marcus Paltela, the big loser, in the top 6, dropping to 5th from his starting position of 2nd.
Decent run by Josh Webster as well, also a 5-place gain as he heads into the top 6, and bits of carbon fibre being pinged off cars there. There's been early contact, but that is really very, very tricky conditions indeed. To be able to see anything through there, you're almost navigating by smell. Big dive up the inside there. That was a brave manoeuvre out of the spray, and it pays off.
Josh Webster getting the place back again from Nelson Panciatici, but Webster can't apply the power.
Mendes sideways there as well.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Fuminelli sideways there.
Big squirm from Webster's car, and that allowed Panciatici back through again. So we've had probably about 3 place changes for 6th position in this race on that very lap, and out of the final corner they go then to complete lap number 3 of the race.
Insanely quick cars, these 500 plus horsepower Dallara designed and built carbon fibre monocoque chassis, Sadev gearbox, proper racing cars, and everyone who's driven them has enjoyed it. They are as nothing else really, and in some ways maybe that has been their demise, because they're faster than GT3 cars. More side-by-side action here.
This is for 3rd place,
and nicely done. And that again is Fuminelli, proving he's not worried about the conditions. They're kind of fallen between 2 stools, Johnny, I think. You know, on their own, they're great, and the RS Trophy races have been, RS01 Trophy races have been very well supported. 50 of these cars built by Dallara and Renault Sport. But as I said, they're much quicker than a GT3 car, and really don't fall into any other category for going racing outside of the trophy. Here's the start again. Was that 4 wide at one point there?
Yeah, it indeed was, and the overlapping began straight away. Here was Kevin Courgeus in the white car trying to go around the outside then of Stein Schotthorst. In fact, the outside line didn't work for the Estonian. He lost a position, and this was the time where Kevin Courgeus rotates but loses no forward locomotion. A change in position between the 2 Mark VDS cars, because Paltela had to get out of the throttle to make sure he didn't run into Kevin Courgeus.
And he did get a 5.5 from the finished Jura, which was very nice for that pirouette. Perfectly executed.
You would have been proud of that on something like a skid pan, and it's almost skid pan conditions in places around this circuit. Still a load of spray being thrown up from the aerodynamic system underneath the car, because it's about getting the car to flow through the air, not only with the airflow over the top of the car, but also how it is diffused at the rear. And it's great to have these wet weather conditions just to work out where the airflow is going under the car and being churned out the back into the face of Pieter Schotthorst, who is still behind David Fuminelli. He was briefly ahead, and a lap later he's going to try the same manoeuvre again. So slots ahead now in the McGregor back car, but Fuminelli does exactly the same as he did a lap ago. There was a slight brush there, but Fuminelli gets the place back again. So into turn 2, we know that Pieter Schotthorst is very, very quick, but Fuminelli kind of hangs out on the outside line and does the outside-inside trick and wrestles the place back. Marcus Paltela.
Webster was sideways with somebody there alongside him.
Probably Panciatici.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
It was. Nelson, play nicely.
Into the kick they go, and Webster and Panciatici providing a really good fight. I just wonder whether the clerk of the course may have had a slight word with Nelson Panciatici late last night.
Way back.
That's the high-class racing number 11 car of Anders Fjordback. Can't quite get the move done. As you say, certainly went with intent there into the first of the parabolicas.
If you're watching this for the first time and wondering how you haven't caught up with this, yeah, I agree. Think of these, if you like, as something similar in concept, but more of a GT than a touring car in style to Class 1 touring cars. So DTM, Super GT, very much designed as a racing car. Spin in the background, and that is Fjordback. He's gone around in the 11. Oh dear. Anders in that high-class racing car, but he didn't hit anything there. Did he jump, or was he pushed? And that is in some ways, I think, why perhaps we haven't seen them racing elsewhere, because they just don't fit into normal GT class structure. Just coming out of turn 10, saved it nicely. The Michelin spinning up on the grass there, but eventually giving him some forward momentum. Number 4 car there is David Fuminelli, ahead of the 21 of Pieter Schotthorst. Schotthorst in that darker colour. And these guys are having a cracking scrap for 3rd position down over. Green number 7 there is Nicky Pastorelli. He's got his hands full at the moment, side by side. They do seem to be able to take all kinds of different lines around Estoril.
Yeah, it's entertaining stuff. This category, of course, was born out of the embers of the Eurocup Megane Trophy.
Very true.
And although those cars looked a lot like Renault Meganes, they certainly weren't. They were like baby DTM machines with the body panels kind of strapped to a carbon tub, as is the case with the Eurocup, the Renault Sport Trophy rather, although we, as John has already mentioned, we don't have a road version of these cars. This is late on the brakes for Raul Owens to try and get the place back again from Anders Fjordback. Remember, he's had a terrible start to this race as well with an early spin, but Raul Owens does get one of those positions back in the number 2 R.S. GP car. People like Nicky Katzberg and Mike Verschoor have won the Eurocup Megane Trophy in the past.
Those were fearsome cars as well.
They were very much so. Franz Verschoor with a regular team in that, with very similar sponsorship. And then we moved forward into the Renault Sport Trophy, which has existed for 2015 and 2016 seasons.
And the battle continues. One place for Anders, getting it back there in that multicoloured blue and bright fluorescent yellow car. In spirit, they evoke the spirit of the Renault 5 Maxi Turbo of those Meganes, because, you know, engine and midships, really lightweight chassis, looking vaguely like a car. This was a departure for Renault Sport to build something specifically, not built on a road car, not echoing any road car styling, but something that, I'd have to say, had Renault built this as a street car, I think they'd have sold everyone that built. It's a fantastic looking car. Has echoes of various other supercars, absolutely, but they're bound to because of the aero requirements. I just think it's a great looking car. I thought it was a fabulous slide by Anders again there in the 11 car. Fjordback somehow holding on as Raul Owens, who ended up in the gravel yesterday after being tapped not once, not twice, but 3 times by Nelson Panciatici. And not very happy either that he was excluded for being pulled out of a dangerous position by the marshals, and he managed to fire the engine and continue. And he's having a cracking battle here. Oh, and then just a little check there.
That was always going to be tough because it's a right-hand kink where you really need all of the track on the exit. I mean, you can ask the car to steer in a little more tightly, but it's so tricky. And I think Raul Owens was turning the wheel to the right as hard as he could there, but just understeering a touch wide, and he took Anders Fjordback with him out onto the grass. So Fjordback again having to do some recovery.
Our leader is gone, isn't he?
Nearly 9 seconds out front from this man, Kevin Courgeus, now having a much better race than yesterday's Endurance Cup affair. Still David Fuminelli in 3rd position ahead of Pieter Schothorst, and Schothorst has got ahead of Fuminelli on 2 separate occasions but couldn't hold that position for much more than a corner. So Fuminelli, Schothorst in the dark blue car, then it's Marcus Paltela in the Mark VDS machine with the blue nose, Josh Webster in the yellow and black car. He's running ahead of Nelson Panciatici, and then we've got a battle between Tanart Satin-Terracool, the Thai, and Lonnie Martins, tucked in behind. French driver, although with a Portuguese flag against his name on the car this weekend. And the cars work their way out of turn 1 through the kink at 2, and Lonnie Martins was shaping up Satin-Terracool for a possible overtake. We'll find out which way that went in a moment. Meanwhile, concentrating on this fight between Raul Owens and Dario Capitanio. So, did we have the place change? No, Satin-Terracool is still just about ahead of Lonnie Martins in the background. There he goes through turn 4. So, the number 4 car being driven by David Fuminelli, ahead of Schothorst and Paltela. Josh Webster going through the kink there underneath the bridge. And then he has behind him Nelson Panciatici. The gap is back then to Satin-Terracool and Lonnie Martins heading into the braking area for the first of the Parabolicas. And so many of these cars deliberately leaving their braking a little bit later than they would do in the dry to hook the white line on the outside of the bend where there's a bit more grip.
Yeah, these cars built by Dallara to very exacting standards. Same sort, and we've heard the drivers saying the same sort of aerodynamic performance as a single-seater, the same sort of safety built into as a current LMP1 car when these cars came out a couple of years ago. Really fantastic investment in styling and also in safety by Renault Sport. And there's again another little touch there. And once again, it's the 16 involved, Nelson Panciatici.
Versus Josh Webster.
It's going to be slippery around the inside, and Panciatici does back out of that one. meantime. The 15 in there as well.
Yeah, that's just behind the battle involving Webster and Pansy-Ticci, and Satin Terracool's going to be under quite a bit of pressure now from Lonnie Martins. They go over the line, windscreen wipers working overtime, just the lone blade, which works from the centre of the windscreen. And 15 from car 17 is the battle for 8th and 9th positions, as Webster goes a touch wide into turn 2. Now, did he mean to do that? He's having to dart to the right-hand side of the track to defend from Nelson Pansy-Ticci.
That's something that Formula One have just outlawed, moving in the braking zone, the Verstappen rule, if you will, after Verstappen's very, very late manoeuvre into the chicane at Suzuka, wasn't it, with Hamilton trying to get up the inside of him. It's something that we talk about quite a lot in endurance racing as well, with the... you say how much those cars move around under throttle. That's what happens when you get 500 horsepower under your right foot and it's slippery. It's about moving in response to somebody else. Get a line, stick on it. Now, he can't come back from there. Turned in a little bit early, but that's all right. There's no overlap there. But it's about doing something in response to someone else. If you come out and defend your position... Now, he's not defending this time, but then again, the 11 of Anders can't get down the inside. Anders Fjordbak. But it's that late manoeuvre. What everybody has to understand is, and you know, racing drivers know this, but a lot of people who watch on don't, that if you're going down the inside of somebody, you can't just press the brake harder and stop. You are on the ragged edge of adhesion. And somebody pulling into your braking area means effectively you're going to run into them.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is... It's like how annoyed you get on the motorway when you set your adaptive cruise control, or you're sitting with your proper braking distance between you and the car in front, and some numpty drives into that gap because they think you're leaving a gap. That's exactly the same thing. It's dangerous and it does need to be outlawed. And I think it's very interesting that the guys in Formula One have put that rule in place, because it will trickle down to other forms of racing, and it needs to.
Yeah, that stemmed from a mistake for Josh Webster at turn 2, and I think he felt the need to pull across to the right-hand side of the track in order to defend. I don't know what the rear visibility is like out of one of these cars. You have a sense of where someone you're racing is, but that was more of an insurance measure, I think, from Josh Webster. I've got to get the car over to this side of the circuit, because if he's not fully alongside me, he's going to be close by. And knowing he was a touch on the back foot out of turn 2, not as quick as Pansy-Ticci behind, then it was forceful driving, forceful defensive driving. Thankfully, contact avoided. This time, Anders Fjordbak from driver's right gets the car stuck in the middle of the road, so that there's no opportunity for Dario Capitanio to get through in the number 1 Oregon car. Just a bit off that battle is Nicky Pastorelli, who hasn't really come to the fore. I expected him to improve from his qualifying position, and that car just not happy in the wet in the 7 machine.
No further action on that Owens versus Fjordbak incident, and there indeed is the confirmation of that on the bottom of the screen. That's the lead.
Yeah, back to Estonian Kevin Korjus. Windscreen wiper still there, working backwards and forwards pretty quickly to clear the screen on the approach to a heavily corrugated approach to turn 1, where the cars rock around on this stiff suspension. A lot of porpoising we saw, particularly yesterday, and the car's having to brake a touch earlier than in the dry yesterday, just to make sure they get round a tight downhill approach to turn number 1. Schothorst of the Stein variety, leading at the end of 9 laps by 11.5 seconds now, ahead of Kevin Korjus. David Fuminelli is 3rd, ahead of Pieter Schothorst and Marcus Paltela, and it's Nelson Pansy-Ticci who's got ahead of Josh Webster now. So there is confirmation that Pansy-Ticci has squeezed ahead of Josh Webster. Don't think we saw that move in the end. We certainly saw Webster defending from the Frenchman, but Pansy-Ticci is now ahead, and Webster looking to try and reverse those positions as soon as he can. 7 minutes plus 1 lap to go.
The Bosch ABS system's working very, very hard in this very difficult set of conditions that the drivers have got for the final outing of the Renault RS 01 Trophy. And it's been a good weekend to send off this car, hasn't it, really? We've had plenty of action and excitement. The pros are always good value for money, even if the driving standards aren't perhaps exactly where they should be. Monstering the curb there, that is Nelson Panciatici, who's among those who have given us the most excitement and entertainment and incident to talk about. I'm going to say he's good value, whatever else goes on. The black machine, dark coloured with the red and blue flashes, both on the front and on the rear lighting units. A lot of people tweeting into us here saying this should have been a GT3 car. Well, it would have had to have been a road car, and it was never planned for that, but I don't disagree. Could easily have been an Alpine, couldn't it? Let's be honest. Fantastic piece of kit. Had a good look over the cockpit of it earlier on today and yesterday as well. Very spacious cockpit, easy to get in and out of. Driver changes, pretty simple to do. And just, I think, a very, very nice looking car.
Oh, they look great. They have a look of real purpose to them, and I like the various aerodynamic, the inlets on the doors, for example, and that front splitter as well. The whole car just looks so menacing, and cracking design, which initially was going to be as part of a 4-year championship. So I do hope that these cars crop up in some other endurance racing. I know that in the 24-hour series there are teams like Equipe Vasseur and V8 Racing, who have won this year, in fact, at Mugello. And Boots and Gignon as well are another team. That was the one that was escaping me for a moment, but Boots and Gignon have run an RS01 as part of the 24-hour series as well, so there's always opportunity to do a 12 or even a 24-hour race in one of these cars. Fuminelli running a little bit wide there into Aurelia corner. He's got a bit of a rear bodywork trailing as well. Some of the rear diffuser on the right-hand side, which is just flapping away in the breeze there. Hopefully he won't be called into the pits to get that fixed.
Yeah, Akio Shimizu was the designer of this car, using some inspiration from a classic Renault record breaker, one of the world's land speed record machines, the Renault Étoile Filante, the Shooting Star. 1956 that car, and broke 300 kilometres at the Bonneville Salt Flats. That's my kind of stuff, being fascinated by world land speed records since I was old enough to read. Yeah, beautiful machine. Drying out now, Johnny. They're just going to get through this one again, 4 minutes plus a lap.
3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th positions totally together here. And Lonnie Martin's not very far away either, in 8th place. So Fuminelli not able to match the pace of Kevin Courjus, who is 10 seconds further up the road and 13 seconds better off than Courjus is the race leader, Stein Schotthorst. Here is Nicky Pastorelli trying to find a way by Dario Capitanio, and he's done it, finally. So is that car starting to just get used to the conditions now as things dry up a little bit? The 7 car may be more set up for dry weather, and maybe the V8 Racing squad thought that the track was going to get drier a little more quickly than it has done, but the 7 car picks off a place finally. Dario Capitanio then falling behind Pastorelli to 13th position. 3 minutes plus a lap still to go. And there is the battle for 3rd place, with David Fuminelli fending off Pieter Schotthorst. He's done a good job so far to keep behind him the Pro Champion for 2016 that was decided yesterday as part of the first half of the endurance race. Marcus Paltelat late on the brakes into the chicane. He's got behind him. Ooh, returning from a slight off-track moment there, Pedro Molero. Slight off-track. He's nearly had to get a ticket to get back in there, scrubbing the, or not quite scrubbing the tyre wall, but he came close to it.
Maybe there's a future for these cars in rallycross then, after seeing that. WRC version of this? WRX rather?
Taking a joker lap. 5-lap dash in a RS01. Well, there's room for it. There's the race leader, Stein Schotthorst, once again. Run by Franz Vasseur. Will we see Franz on the podium as the team representative? Always an entertainer. The second of his cars is the second in that sequence, running around in 4th at the moment between David Fuminelli and Marcus Paltelat. Nelson Panciatici behind Paltelat, thinking about a move here on the fin. tighter line through turn 2. That might have gained him a little bit of ground as they headed for the braking area there at turn 3, but Paltela manages to keep his car in the right position to fend off the Frenchman behind. And we've got Josh Webster there in the yellow and black car, also part of this 5-car train. Out of turn 4 they go. So the race leader about to enter sector 3. This is lap 13, and depending on how long it's going to take Stein Schottels to get around at the end of this lap, we may have this lap and 2 more. It might just be 1 more lap. No, it's going to be at least 2 more. It might even be 3 more rather. So end of sector 2 for Stein Schottels, and if he can get back within a minute, then we will have a couple more laps out of this race. There he is, and he will cross the line before the clock reads 0. So about to head on to his penultimate lap. Stein Schottels still happy to take a little bit of curb on the exit of the Parabolica. There'll be 3/4 of a minute still to go.
He's not been troubled, has he? I mean, all the action's gone on behind him.
Looking very dry there on the inside of the approach to the S's.
It dries off so quickly here, Johnny.
Yeah.
Crowd beginning to make their way out to the far side as well. ELMS action and 4 hours of racing to come. Bit of sunshine brought people up from the coastline. There's the second place car going through. Then the battle for third, just coming onto the 984-metre front straight here at Estoril.
So late on the brakes, Kevin Courgeus, happy to, well, not much choice other than to settle for second position. Can't match the pace of the race leader. 15 seconds adrift now, but in no danger of giving away second position because there's a further 11 seconds back then to this fight. David Fuminelli, in a sense, the cork in the bottle, because I think Pieter Schottels would be able to lap a bit more quickly than he's managing right now, but he's bottled up behind Fuminelli, running around in 4th position ahead of Marcus Paltela. So the race leader on his penultimate lap, Stein Schottels. There is the number 4 car of Fuminelli ahead of Pieter Schottels, and the 9 car rather of Marcus Paltela, heading out of the 4th corner. And through the right-hand kink they go. So various different lines again as they approach the first of the Parabolicas. The Oregon car then out front in 3rd position ahead of the McGregor back car of Pieter Schottels. Marcus Paltela in 5th position, and then it's Nelson Panciatici. A little bit of a gap emerging now between Panciatici and Josh Webster, who may be backing things off to run to the end of the race as he pushed a bit too hard on those wet weather tyres. Or is it the wet weather tyres just can't cope with these drying conditions now? And it's a little bit dependent on how well you've treated those 4 Michelins beneath you. Clock is at 0, and the race leader already on to his final lap. So 1 more lap to go, just less than a couple of minutes, and it looks like it's going to be a victory for Stein Schottels. Yeah,
leader's gone through, down through turn 1, second place car coming across the line now, leader in turn 3, but this battle coming out of 13, the final corner. And is that a little bit of an advantage for our 3rd place driver, Fuminelli? I think it is. That might be enough, you know, if you can keep that on the island.
14 laps done for race leader Schottels. Courgeus in 2nd position. David Fuminelli is 3rd, and then it is Pieter Schottels from Marcus Paltela.
The guys coming home now. Here is Stein Schottels, as he has no challenge whatsoever heading into the last half lap of the final race of the RS01 Trophy. Kevin Courgeus in 2nd position. He'll be fine, but who is going to be 3rd? And at the moment it is still that number 4 car, David Fuminelli, the Italian driver, and he's holding on to that position. I think he's done enough if he can bring it home from here. Cracking second half of the race in terms of the rearguard action that he's had to fight. Through turn 6, our leader will be coming onto the front straight in just a few moments' time. And indeed, there is Stein Schottels. That's the last corner, pitches it in, and the final race ever for the RS01 Trophy then is won by Equipe Verscheur, the Dutch team, and Stein Schottels takes it in dominating style. Second place car, not even on the front straight. Here it is, coming through in second, Kevin Korzius for R.S. GP Art Junior. And then watch for the explosion of cars out of the final corner. There they are, and it will be David Fuminelli who comes through ahead of the series champion in Pro. Peter Schotthurst will be off to Japan to prepare for that Nismo GT 500 test. And the rest of the field streaming in behind them. Well, a fitting send-off surely for the RS01. The car that was launched back in 2014. Spectacular racing it's given us over the last couple of seasons. Top speed of over 300 kilometers an hour where available, and at that speed producing the same sort of downforce as a Renault V8 single-seater car. Just brilliant stuff. And there are first and second side by side. Kevin Korzius, who had a horrible race yesterday, car basically conking out at him halfway around the opening lap. Actually, a little bit further into that when he was in second place, and a strong second place at that. But will get the car home to a second place finish today. I wonder if that makes up a little bit. David Fuminelli holds on to third place in the face of tremendous pressure from Schotthurst and Paltala and Panciatici. Webster just dropping away a little at the end, Johnny. As I say, I think a fitting final weekend. Plenty of accident and incident for that RS01 trophy car. And there's the final results. Dominating, wasn't it, in the end?
Yeah, nearly 16 seconds from Stein Schotthurst. He was unstoppable in that final race of the year for the Renault Sport Trophy. Kevin Korzius, as you say, making up for yesterday's retirement early on in the endurance race. So second place for the Estonian, ahead of David Fuminelli, who was proved stout defence in the end, ahead of Peter Schotthurst, Marcus Paltala and Nelson Panciatici, completing the top six. Fastest lap to Stein Schotthurst, surprise, surprise, 149.6 for the Dutchman. Yeah,
that was a second lap, Johnny, and you know, had the clear track ahead of him, made the best use of it. Simple as.
So 25 minutes plus a lap, certainly disappearing very, very quickly indeed in trying conditions in the early stages. And then it's a question of how hard you pushed your Michelin tyres and how much you could still lean on them, I suppose, towards the end of the race. But Schotthurst, Korzius and Fuminelli welcomed into Parc Fermé, right beneath the podium. And in a moment or two, we will see the final Renault Sport Trophy podium ever for these cars. And immediately handshakes between Kevin Korzius and David Fuminelli, which is good to see. But they were even surprised they're in the same race, because I don't think they saw each other much after about half distance. And Stein Schotthurst as well, a quiet run for him out front, but he kept his concentration, dare I say, unlike Fabian Schiller, and that's the difference, isn't it, between the Pro and the AM drivers. Despite a massive lead of 15, 16 seconds, Stein Schotthurst kept his concentration and kept the car on the black stuff.
Yeah, and his best sector one time was on his last lap, and he'd really eased it off in the middle couple of sections on that last lap. No reason to do otherwise. Conditions getting slightly better towards the end of the race, and I don't know what's going to replace this, if anything, Johnny, but I'll be sad to see these cars go. They look and sound fantastic, and from the audience reaction, the spectator reaction, always plenty of people around them when the cars are getting ready to go out or when they're coming back in again. It's something that I think was a very interesting experiment by Renault Sport. They committed to 50 cars. Dallara designed and built the carbon fibre monocoque, and everything that was loaded onto them, from the dry-sumped Nismo 3.8 engine, the Bosch ABS, the 7-speed Sadef gearbox, everything was absolutely top quality. And the design of that car, 2014 LMP1 chassis standards, when that car was designed and first came out in 14. Great stuff.
Yeah, they're true prototypes, and I mean, when a manufacturer comes out with a prototype, that's what you'd expect to see. Let's hand down to Julien Bielt in the pit lane, who has our race winner.
Stein Schiller, a perfect weekend for you in Estoril, another dominant performance from pole position. How did you manage the tricky conditions out there?
Yeah, I'm first of all very happy and grateful to the team for the amazing car. And starting from pole, it was mainly about the first corner, and we managed to keep it. Kevin was alongside me on the left-hand side, so he had a good start. But in the end, I got out in front and they exited turn 1, and then after that it was just driving my own race and consolidating the pace. And it went very well. I think in the first couple laps I already had a few seconds gap. And then after that it was just keeping a constant pace with managing the tires because the track was drying. So we had to cool the tires a bit as well, and I think we did a very good job.
Stan, you and the team Equipe should have had a lot of success in Renault Sport trophies over the past 2 years. What memories will you keep from this series?
Good question. Obviously all the wins. I will remember all of those. And I'm very happy to have won the first race in this series ever, the first pro race in Spa last year, and then to win the last race now today is a great way to finish it off.
Thank you very much, Stein.
Yeah, so bookended with Stein Schiller's success. Hadn't quite twigged that, but good to know that he's keeping tabs on all the wins that he's had. And remember, just fell short by 2 points to Andrea Pizzitola in the 2015 championship. We wind the clock back about half an hour or so, and here is the start of the race, rather, in amongst a load of spray. So picture yourself in one of those Oregon cars, or perhaps Josh Webster just managing to squeeze into turn 1 and knowing where to turn in. An early spin for Raoul Owens in the number 2 car. Off track for Nicky Pastorelli, nearly collecting the rejoining Owens. Kevin Courjus off track there, but also he'd done a pirouette, I think, prior to that or just after it, which meant that he didn't lose any places, but he did a full 360-degree spin right in front of Marcus Paltela and stayed there in second position. Quite how he managed to do that, I'll never know. The sideways moment there, here we go. This is Courjus spinning round and round. It's almost like a Russell Swift manoeuvre, that, as he does it on the move and then somehow finds the right gear. Car pointing in the right direction. Let's carry on as if it never happened. Nose to tail between Raoul Owens and Nicky Pastorelli, and the high-class racing car of Anders Fjordbach also getting involved. Anders subsequently would have his own spin. This was a great battle between Pieter Schothorst and David Fuminelli. And Schothorst, who has been unstoppable. There's the spin for Anders Fjordbach, by the way, and rear tyres on the grass, so tricky to find your traction from that point. Again off track for Anders Fjordbach, side by side with Raoul Owens heading through the right-hand king. There was a little bit of contact there between Josh Webster and Nelson Panciatici in the second part of the S's, and Panciatici almost got the place but not quite. Later on in the race though, Panciatici would get ahead of the Brit. There, a very gravelly moment for Dario Capitanio, and here was Stein Schiller coming across the line to take the final ever win in the Renault Sport Trophy, ahead of Kevin Courjus in second position.
When people ask me and say, Hindhoff, when you're talking about Le Mans and LMP1 cars that look like street cars, what do you mean? That's what we mean. That's under 1,100 kilos.
Yeah.
Built to LMP1 chassis regulations in 2014, or at least to the safety versions thereof. That's what LMP1 could look like in the future, for my money.
156 points, wins the Drivers' Championship in the Pro part for Pieter Schothorst and Equipe Vachour. Kevin Courjus finishing in second position, and Marcus Paltela slipping to third place in the Pro Driver standings. David Fuminelli, Tanot Satyinterikul, Lewis Williamson finishing in sixth place after early action from him. He did the first couple of rounds. Lonnie Martins seventh. Raoul Owens would have wished for a bit better than eighth position in the standings. Josh Webster, who's done a couple of rounds this year at Imola and here in Estoril, finishes 11th ahead of Jordan Groger, who was another teammate of Carmen Jorda. And here is how the teams finished. 476 points for Team Mark VDS EG 0.0, finishing ahead of Franz Vachour's team Equipe Vachour, 363. 325 for RHGP. They get on the podium in the team's classification. And here is the podium for the race. Stein Schiller takes the top step. We'll get a team representative for Equipe Vachour very shortly as well. So to Stein's right is Kevin Courjus, and to his left, David Fuminelli. Here's the national anthem. the national anthem of the Netherlands for Stijn Schothorst and indeed for his team, Equipe Vasseur. Kevin Corjus from Estonia finishing in second position, and from Italy, David Fuminelli fending off Pieter Schothorst. The first trophy to be handed out goes to Fuminelli. These very smart BRM trophies from the watchmaker, and the third place trophy going to Fuminelli. To second place, it's Kevin Corjus, but the trophy with the number 1 on it going the way of Stijn Schothorst, who is very, very happy with that victory. A great season for him in the Renault Sport Trophy last year, just missing out on the title by a couple of points, but coming back late on in season 2016, far from doing the whole season. He's done Spa and here at Estoril, but shown that he's lost none of his talent behind the wheel of one of these incredible cars. And there is one of the team members of Equipe Vasseur as well. We don't see Franz Vasseur, as it turns out, joining his driver on the podium. All 4 guys now gathering together for the group shot. And then there are 3 bottles of champagne that need to be decorked, and some race suits that will get very damp indeed. Straight for the team member. There goes Stijn Schothorst. He's disappeared back into the paddock.
He's quick.
Yeah, absolutely. In and out of the car. And he's back again. And Kevin Corjus having a well-deserved slurp of champagne. We hope you've enjoyed the Renault Sport Trophy here in Estoril and for the year. From John and I, it's goodbye for now.